Welcome back to the Thrill of Driving podcast. Now, we got plenty of really cool comments from you guys on our first podcast, which was part 1 of our Best of 2021 series. A lot of y'all also said that this podcast should be renamed as Talking to the Boss Man. So, Boss Man, Adil, Darukhanawala, welcome back to the Thrill of Driving podcast. We'll think of calling this, Talking to the Boss Man and all that later on. But the first podcast was on the best cars of 2021, the best sedans, the best small cars, and the best small SUVs. Today, we are going to dive into what is the meat of the market, and those are SUVs. Adil, before we talk about the best SUVs as a trend, do you see that continuing? Do you see that booming?
This is a worldwide phenomenon and it's only going to grow. There's a reason for it because the XUVs by their build and the driving position and whatnot exude a lot of strength. Strength denotes confidence in safety and whatnot, psychologically and otherwise as well. So that sort of thing is going to proliferate. I will only give one small example which illustrates how the SUV trend changed in the minds of consumers. Porsche was predominantly a maker of great sports cars, the 911 and whatnot. And then they came in with the Cayenne. And everyone thought it was really Porsche damaging the breed. So
Sacrilege.
It was sacrilege. So, but look at it today. Not just today, just about within a couple of years of the Cayenne coming in, it transformed everyone's opinion about where and why SUVs would have a place. It's just that Rolling Stone has gathered so much moss that every manufacturer worth his or her name has to have a sizable chunk of models in their portfolio which purport to be SUV type of vehicles. Now, when I say SUV type of vehicles here in India, apart from the Thar, which is a 4x4, and the Gurkha, wonderful car anyway on its own, hardcore thing, all of the others are pseudo SUVs in the sense they are front wheel drive only and whatnot. But the form they pack is the SUV sort of a form. And I think that helps in the minds of many consumers. Also, given the way our roads are configured, the extra ground clearance also plays its role both in practical use and also psychologically.
Yeah. So before we get into the SUV that we're going to talk about, let me remind you that if you enjoyed this podcast, give us a thumbs up. If you're watching this on the Evo India YouTube channel, you can share it with like-minded enthusiasts. This is also out on all the podcast channels, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, everywhere. So you can also listen to it on your commute to and from work. And if you have questions, drop it in the comments, and that'll give us fodder to talk about on the next podcast. It'll also give us cool ideas. Some of the comments that we got last time, Adil, this I must ask you. So somebody, he's an industrial designer, and you talked about the Ford SUV, the compact SUV that they're making being really cool. So he's actually, he wants to tell you that he can sketch it out if you give him proper input. So Adil, you want to take him up on that?
Well, let me rack my brains again and let me go back in time to when I saw that, the rushes, I will communicate that to him.
So we'll get back to you.
But now, that's such a positive thing. It shows that a diverse section of people are getting clued into the podcast.
Yes. Industry executives, enthusiasts, and also designers, the whole cross section. And
consumers, of course.
And consumers, of course. And we are going to keep it real.
It has to be.
Yeah. Let's start with one of the very, very important SUVs of 2021, and that's the Volkswagen Tiguan. Of course, the Volkswagen Tiguan also has the sister vehicle, the Skoda Kushaq. The Kushaq came before the Tiguan, both based on the MQB A0 Iron platform, a platform that has been Indianized, not cheapened, and that's something that we've repeatedly said in our stories. It has not been cheapened, but it has been Indianized primarily to use Indian steels. In fact, one of the things that really surprised me about the Polo, the Vento, the Rapid, that until the end, they were using imported steels. They were not using local Indian steel. And that obviously would have contributed to it being priced at a premium.
I think there are two things to look at. Number one is, big companies have supply agreements with a lot of vendors across. So if Volkswagen had already had entered into agreements with the steel sheet suppliers in Europe for this, then I don't think that they would have been able to get away from that. But it's always in the fitness of things that when you come to a new market, and let's understand one thing, India is a manufacturing market. It's not like Britain, or it's not like some other countries where it's only screwdriver sort of stuff. Yes, we have got screwdriver assemblies as well here. It's a different thing. But the bulk of the market is a manufacturing market. So you have to look at things that, yes, Tata Steel, Steel Authority of India, these guys are giants in their own right. And they do make the best steels. So why not look at what's available just adjacent to your plants, And I think it's sometimes it always foxes me that you have got the solution in front of your eyes and you're looking right through it. So better late than never for Volkswagen. And I like the thought which they said that it's Indianized. When India can make a rocket to go to the moon, I think that there should not be any hesitation in thinking across we can't make a great car or parts of a car. And I think this is something which needs to be drawn into the mindset of the production engineering guys, the guys who make purchase decisions, etc., that they have to look. And the salvation for any car company in the country lies in localization with localized materials which they can machine, hone, and then fit into the cars. And I think that's evident. And Volkswagen maybe has awakened a little bit late, but better late than never. And most important thing, the Tiguan drives very well without being compromised on the handling aspect. And the road holding aspect, which is so very vital.
Which is the crucial thing that earlier we always had this mindset that if somebody said that something has been Indianized, that would primarily mean that it has been cheapened.
Yes.
Cost would have been taken out either from the crash structure or from the equipment or from the engines or from the transmission, but cost would have been juiced out of the vehicle. But here, there is no real space that you can say that, oh, they've cut costs here. Okay, that the roof lining, that's something that we've pointed out repeatedly, but that is going to be done by Feb, March at the latest. In fact, the Slavia and whatever the Volkswagen Saloon is going to be called, that will have it sorted out. But apart from that, and maybe the aircon vents, there is no real visible sign of cost cutting. And drum brakes at the rear. Okay, that is the most visible area where their costs have been cut, but otherwise, nothing really.
Honestly speaking, I think the Tiguan is a harbinger of what we can expect more and more of from Volkswagen in India. And if you care to think about it, when Volkswagen first came into India, and you looked at the interiors of the cars, they were all black, dark, and dreary. Not to say that the craftsmanship was not, it was there. But we are a much more outgoing nation, a very sunny disposition towards life and whatnot. And to have that didn't gel well. When you learn from these, and these are nuances which are very different. In Europe, black works very well, and it has worked well historically. In India, that doesn't gel well. So Volkswagen has understood it cannot be too rigid. It has to strike that fine balance between being European and yet being relevant to the market needs in India without compromising what made Volkswagen a Volkswagen.
Yeah, which is what made Volkswagen a Volkswagen. It is the way it drives, and the Tiguan, it just drives so well. It right now is the best ride and handling package in the mid-size SUV segment. Of course, it is slightly smaller than the Creta and the Celtos, but to drive, it just puts such a wide smile in your face, and plus, it gives you great ride quality also.
Sirish, one thing which I've not failed to understand many a time, why do we need 7-seater SUVs? To be honest with you. At the end of the day, even the fat cats who have the big X5s and the M classes and whatnot, they still normally have 2 or 3 people only in the car. So I'm saying across over there, for a family needs, what the Tiguan package offers is just spot on. I fail to understand a Creta and an Alcazar. a Harrier and a Safari in that sort of sense. Yes, they are relevant, but do you need to make everything 7 seats or 6 seats? I don't think so. I think you need to what you call start. Okay, there's a maturity which you need in the market, plus also a certain panic in the minds of the marketing guys. Oh, we don't have a 7-seater in our portfolio, so let's ram in something that way. Well, it is both offense and defense there, but you have to understand, and the Tiguan package is proportioned just perfect for India.
Yeah. I think it should have been a little wider so you could actually seat 3 in comfort at the back. Right now, 2 are very comfortable, 3 not so. But then again, it's very rare that you have 5 people packed into a car. And what Volkswagen have told us is that this MQB A0 platform, this is the widest it can go. This is also the longest wheelbase that it can have. So this is it. This is the maximum size that you are going to get.
I think we are going to get, we are going to ration the market given the amount or the lack of real estate on our roads. You need to have a very compact footprint. So that's where I think that the Greens, the ill-informed, always educated, illiterate politician always wants to penalize cars which look big. It's a different thing that the politician himself uses a big car to show that he is important. So I think for whatever purpose and reason, as more and more of our car buying public gets really clued into how mobility in cities, in towns, I'm not worried more about what we do between cities, travel there, but in cities, roads are getting chock-a-block, so you require compact cars, and that stands true even for the SUVs.
Yeah, so Adil has no problem with the Tiguan size and the packaging. We also have to speak about the Kushaq. Now, we also have to say that this is now not the Volkswagen group in India, but it is the Skoda Volkswagen group in India. Skoda are in the driver's seat, and the reason for that is because Skoda are more nimble. In fact, the MQB A0 platform has been given to Skoda to develop further for markets such as us, for developing markets, whereas Volkswagen now is focusing on their whole electrification strategy. So Skoda being in the driver's seat for India is actually a good thing because we will get all the future developments on this platform very quickly. Skoda more agile, Skoda understands developing markets, being a Czech brand without losing out on the Volkswagen-ness, because after all it is a parent, it's a daughter, son to the main mother brand. So the Kushaq, that was the first that came. And you ask me, I think the Kushaq looks really cool, really young, vibrant.
Very vibrant.
Colors that the Kushaq comes in, the red, that orange, it looks really striking. A lot of people have a thing that the 2-spoke steering wheel, they don't really like it. I think it looks cool, but what's your opinion on it?
I think it's something that everyone thinks a 3-spoke steering wheel is, but the whole world got together and started driving on a 2-spoke steering wheel. For years and years, and for at least 3.5 or 4 generations of Indian motorists, ran the Fiat 11 and the Premier Padmini with a 2-spoke steering wheel. So okay, let's not decry that. Sometimes, and if you think about it, there were the Frenchies who had got a single spoke. So maybe then it doesn't matter across roads as long as it is perfect, it works, etc. And that's a design element. Okay, you need to throw in some design thing. With Skoda, I have no issues on that front. I still only hope and wish that when they deliver a car to a consumer, the consumer need not pay the service guys a visit within the first week. That is fundamental. And I've seen a lot of Kushaq owners go back very quickly, quicker than when they went to put in the money and buy the car. This is something which they have to avoid. How do they do this when they have got such a hold on so much of development and all that? Why do they leave these small bits to chance?
Especially when Skoda has that baggage from the past. So even if it's a small problem, it just becomes...
It mushrooms into a big...
So that is something that I think now it has been sorted out. In fact, the whole EPC, we learnt of it because of what happened with the Kushaq. But I think that is all now behind them. And now they are looking forward to the Slavia. In fact, they have plans to sell 3,500 between
Can I just interject here?
Yeah.
Sirish, in some years ago, the consumer's minds where I'll not buy a Indian car or I'll not buy a brand new car till about 6-8 months have gone. So by that time, I'm understanding now, can we throw that thing back? Why is a foreign manufacturer, an MNC, having this sort of thought process linked to them like that? So I think many Indian consumers need to reevaluate this thought process also. You will not find much happening with the Tata car or a Mahindra car now like that. But then you're seeing this sort of thing happen. So it is just that the wheel is turning full circle for the wrong reasons.
We used to say, that Tata, Mahindra, Royal Enfield, they do their last 5-10% of R&D on customers.
First customers.
Looks like everybody's doing it. So you can paint everybody with the same brush. So that's the Tiguan and the Kushaq. People have asked us this question, should we buy the Tiguan or the Kushaq? And honestly, the only answer can be, if you like the styling of one, go for it. Or if you have a dealership closer to you, go for that. Otherwise, what other reason is there to recommend a Tiguan over a Kushaq or vice versa?
I think it's a very personal situation here, what you like, how subjective is styling for you, and how, let me tell you, the interiors of both cars are good. But the Volkswagen thing is really subtly classy, It's really great in that sort of sense. And I think that someone told me last week or something that they have got what? CarPlay comes on
wirelessly. Yes. Yeah.
For me, fundamentally, that is a big... I'm not much of a guy but having too many gizmos inside. But getting CarPlay there, I think it's a very, very... And it stops me from carrying ungainly cables or putting ungainly cables here and there. So in that sort of thing, this is a good sign, which needs to be repeated and others to be inspired by and adopt, So all good practices should be there like that.
Yeah. Of course, we also have to say that the Kushaq does have the same CarPlay, the wireless CarPlay. So the connectivity, infotainment, all that is the same. The Tiguan, at least Volkswagen, what they've done well is that they've positioned the 1.5 as the GT.
I like that GT moniker there.
So that's a cool thing. I think this year Skoda will see, because we have talked about it, and they might bring a Monte Carlo version for their 1.5. Monte Carlo on Skoda obviously comes from the Monte Carlo Rally, the legendary Monte Carlo Rally. So hopefully we'll see something there. Maybe we'll even see some motorsport from Skoda, considering they have a very strong rallying heritage.
As I see it, if Volkswagen has mandated Skoda to spearhead all development, etc. in India, and the Volkswagen racing story is probably the biggest success for the company in India over anything what they have done. I think it's a good thing if they transfer this thing of the Volkswagen Cups, the Polo, Vento Cups, etc., and go into, say, maybe a Skoda Cup. And the basic stuff is already there. The people are there, the infrastructure is there, the thought is there, the expertise is there. It's only a question of brand engineering there on the logos and whatnot. But yes, I think it'll be very good, and I think Indian rallying can benefit quite a lot from that.
So like you had the Polo Cup, Vento Cup for racing, you have a Skoda Kushaq Cup for rallying.
Correct.
The rallying community will benefit, and honestly speaking, the enthusiasm for rallying is there. Okay, the promoters have screwed up, the FMSCI, they haven't really done a stellar job, but enthusiasm is still so strong. So if we have a Skoda Cup, and Skoda internationally also, they are not there in the WRC, they are there in the WRC too. So they are there to develop young drivers, to give them that boost, that intermediate step before they eventually can, or if they make it to the WRC. They can do the same thing here in India. And I think the Kushaq will make for a great rally car. The 1-liter engine is great. The 1.5 engine is even nicer. It rides well, handles well. The platform, torsionally, it is more rigid than the Polo. And the Polo, when I rallied it, I used to keep saying that the shell is so rigid that it just, just adds to the handling. With the small 1.6 Polo, we could beat the faster 2-liter CDRs. And that was just purely on the basis of handling. So there is a lot of potential. Skoda, if you're listening,
you better listen well.
But do get into motorsport, because it will just do a lot for the brand.
I think more than anything else, Skoda needs to, make its products have that quintessential joy of everything across of them. You must get people to experience joy. Up till now, I've not seen any of the German brands try to express the joy of driving. I'm not talking pleasure or thrill of driving, a joy of driving for the masses. Can we do that? Can someone do that?
Can someone do that? So that's on the Tiguan and the Kushaq. We move on to the Alcazar, which you briefly pointed out that you couldn't see the point between the Creta and the Alcazar. I know a few guys who bought the Alcazar and they don't really want the seventh seat or the third row, but they want that additional boot space.
True.
So that third row is always folded down and they've got a bigger boot. So that is a good thing.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. Though ultimately the Alcazar didn't really floor us like the Creta has done in the past.
Yeah, there's a small price penalty you pay for going bigger up the line without really getting so much more which you thought about it, you know. So yes, it again, like I said, this is exactly which boggles the mind as to why those 7-seater versions coming through. Yes, it's a stopgap. It is a question of I think the Innova phenomenon. So the Innova MPV manufacturer said, let's have a SUV to what you call have 7 seats and take the fight to the Innova. They'll never win the fight that way with the Innova. And in that sort of a sense, it certainly defeats the purpose across over there. See the big Toyota Amazons and whatnot, they have 2 spare seats at the back which fold down flat and whatnot. But those, again, there also they are used in a cinch, not regularly. Here you don't have these cars with the seats which are used. They have proper seats, but you don't have the headroom, you don't have the elbow room.
Your knees are in your nose.
So that's what I'm saying. So in that sort of sense, unless and until it's a groundbreaking interior packaging which a 7-seater SUV has, these sort of things really speaking don't make or get me so over ecstatic about these things, you know.
One thing we have to point about the Alcazar is that it's not just a longer Creta like how the Safari is a longer Harrier. Here the wheelbase is bigger, so they have gone through the effort of re-engineering the platform. They got bigger doors on it, so all of that is there, but ultimately it doesn't drive as well as the Creta. I probably think that the wheels are a little too big for the Creta to handle, and the ride is a bit too stiff because over there people want more comfort. This is, if you want to drive, you'll drive a Creta, right?
Exactly.
So you need to focus on the comfort. And I think that is something that Kia have noticed. They've taken feedback from Alcazar owners and the Karens, their MPV, and they're clearly talking about this as an MPV. They are not saying that this is a 7-seater SUV.
I think that's a really smart thought process. So what happens is you're not painted by the same brush when you're looking at the thing. The Karens look smashing, and in that sort of a sense, when you look at it, a flanking strategy really works to great effect from a marketing and a messaging perspective. So Kia, I always thought Kia was always the smarter one of the two. Not for anything. No, I'm not saying Hyundai is not smart, but these guys have the asset which is Hyundai to learn from, and they're using it to the hilt.
Yeah, so Karen's obviously not a 2021 vehicle. This is something that we're going to be driving very soon. In fact, we're driving it on the 24th. So by the time we do the next podcast, we'll probably have driven it. It looks great. And one thing I want to point out is that even when they unveiled the cars, it had smaller wheels on it. So that means that Kia, they're thinking smartly. They're focusing on ride comfort, and an MPV is about ride comfort.
Sirish, many a times I've seen people they go larger wheels, but they don't go with the aspect ratio which the larger wheel requires for India. And many a time I've seen my own Tata Hexa. It's got probably the best ride handling package of any cars even till today, and it really ran well on the 19-inch wheels. So what I'm saying is, you need to make a very well qualified engineering solution to the bigger wheel package. Not just bigger wheels to enhance the show, but it has to go. The show has to go with the go as well. So that is where I feel the balance is required across.
Have you had any tire issues with your Hexa? Because not at
all.
Had so many problems.
Not a single puncture to date.
Not a single puncture. So.
And I have done almost about 5.5 years now with the car. Not a single element which has given me excepting for regular servicing as mandated, the car is just performed.
The Hexa is probably one of those unsung stories, right?
Absolutely.
They did a really good job with it. I think they positioned it wrong against the Krista. They should have positioned it more as a lifestyle product or something like that. And would have done well.
Absolutely. No, again, like I said, there was that hesitation in the minds of the... And one more thing, as I see it, Tata Motors has gone through a series of changes in the marketing sense. They were under cost pressures from the top to start showing profits, etc., everything. And the same amount of people were burdened quite a lot into making decisions. So the bigger decisions was the volume cars. So the Hexa got stepmotherly treatment or didn't get the nurturing it deserved. Trust me, the Hexa owners group which is there is mind-blowing in and effusive in its praise. I have a friend who bought the Hexa at the same time with me. He has done 95,000 kilometers with the car, excepting for a set of tires which has changed and a battery. Nothing has been changed on the car. It's unbelievable.
So
but it's true. Unbelievable, but true.
Yeah. So that's the Hexa for you. Next on our list, we have the MG Aster. Now, we drove the Aster at the BIC on the racetrack. I don't know why we are driving a mid-size SUV on a racetrack because there's... Okay, but we could push it. We could talk to you a little bit about the handling. And then we drove it on the interior roads. We didn't drive it on public roads.
True.
So our verdict can't be 100% qualified, but okay, 95% is there. What we thought about the Aster was, in terms of the packaging, very nice, good in terms of ride, handling, the engine, little rough being a 3-cylinder, but it had performance, it was good, the gearbox was good, interior packaging was very nice, especially the way the dash was put together, it looked very premium. In fact, this is a proper MG. This is not a rebadged vehicle from a low-cost brand brought into India. This is a proper MG, and that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, the thing is that if it's pure MG, I'm all for it. But I always have that nagging feeling in my mind that behind the MG badge is all China. So, and where China comes in, I grow horns for the simple reason. Not to take away anything from MG, so to speak, in that sort of sense. But what MG India has done is they have managed to, in the face of so much turmoil which we have experienced with our northern neighbor, they have managed to hide or not let the Chinese originality come to the fore and made it a triumph of the Britishness of the badge. And that, I think, for both, cannot say a gullible public, but for both aware and unaware consumers, I think that has really helped across. It would not have helped if the cars were not good. In the same breath, I would... The Aster represents all what is very good about how they have done it. Again, what I mentioned about the Tiguan with the compactness, the Aster also comes in that same vein. I also see that it is not overly garish. Otherwise, that large, big MG logo, I think the biggest amongst all cars in the country. So, in that sort of sense and all that, yes, styling is still subjective. I would have loved to see a little bit more Europeanized styling. I think there's a styling which is a mismatch of certain Japanese, certain Korean, and infinitesimally Chinese things. So it's a mismatch of that. They will need to, what you call, the design language will definitely come across. But the Aster is a good package worthy of having a second look.
Yeah, so Aster, good package, worthy of having a second look. Also, for whatever volumes and numbers they brought down, they were sold out for, 2-3 months as soon as they announced prices. Yeah. Also, we have to mention autonomous features. Aster,
True. The first ADAS car in India.
First ADAS car, it has those
in its category.
In its category. Not the first, but in its category.
Yeah.
It has those eyes, so you can say, hey, MG, and tell me what the weather is like, read out a joke, all of those. And those eyes looking at you don't even look creepy. They actually are quite endearing and a cool touch.
First, I thought it was gimmicky and whatnot, but given the fact that I drive to Bombay and back at least once a week in my car, and I can only listen to music so much. So if I've got a banter going on, I think in that sort of sense, it does help across over there.
AI will probably have to evolve to keep up banter with you, Adil. So I think there's some way to go.
Right.
But it's a start.
It's a start.
Somebody has to start somewhere.
Great.
From the Aster, moving to what I think was one of the most impressive vehicles, period, launched in 2021. Obviously, the 700.
Absolutely. And I remember when I was doing my book, Timeless Mahindra, about a year and a half before the launch of this thing. And I'd seen the prototypes there at MRV, and they had really opened up the thing for me to write the book and whatnot. So I was privy to a lot of things. At that time itself, when I saw that it had the XUV 500 had grown bigger, etc. And this is how it had evolved. When the first BMW X5 came in, it was so compact that today X5 and the original X5 you see, it's chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
What the X3 is today
It's actually bigger than the very first X5.
bigger than the X5.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, so in that sort of sense, when we saw that thing and it was evolving, the engineering work was done, testing. Again, let me say one more thing. Mahindra, in a couple of people there, think very, very well. And they said that yes, we are going to offer more from the basic XUV 500 package. Need not say that we have got a next generation XUV 500. We are going bigger. And at that time, they had shared the thing about the car having the XUV 700 moniker, not the 500. And I think that yes, there's so much more which has been packed into it. And I'm saying not just about equipment. I'm talking about the basic configuration of the car, the basic engineering of the car, the platform, the engines, every sort of area they had looked into and improved, enhanced, etc. So I think, excepting the styling in the front end.
I still think the styling looks okay, and especially the DRL signature, it actually cuts a good shape, but then again, styling is personal.
Yes.
What is not personal is the engineering that has gone into it. Now, the fact that they actually benchmarked the body in white stiffness against the Skoda Kodiaq, the big Skoda, and Skoda's Volkswagen Group vehicles all handle very well. They've improved on the torsional rigidity of the Skoda Kodiaq. They've actually given it a proper 5-link rear axle, not your regular torsion beam, which even the Safari, the Harrier, all of those have. This is the only one to have proper independent rear suspension with a control blade to make sure that everything is rigid, tracks true and straight. They've got 2nd generation Koni FSD dampers on it. The Compass was the first one with FSD dampers. It's still running Gen 1. This has got Gen 2 FSD dampers. And the results are brilliant ride as well as brilliant handling.
There's a key thing which you have to, factor into this. Why have they done all this thing? Of course, it's a great evolutionary step and a logical step going forward. You have to understand they make the best 2-liter engines in the business in the country. The diesel is already proven, rugged, absolutely bulletproof. But that didn't bomb my mind. The petrol 2-liter, when you look at that, and I had a friend's BMW 320 with me, and we both compared the engines over the XUV 700 was consistently outperforming that BMW, which I think is a big thing. I'm not saying in absolute terms and all that, but the fact that it could run and always have its nose ahead is a very, very big thing. And honestly, anyone who has driven the XUV 700, the way we drive spiritedly at times, you can see that the more spirited is your driving inputs, the more the engine rewards you. And I think that is a very, very big statement in the Indian automotive scene here.
Yeah, this is a direct injection turbocharged petrol engine.
GDI.
In terms of equipment, this is and the spec is as highly spec'd as anything you would get anywhere in the world. There is nothing lacking to anything that you would get. So this, in terms of engineering, done completely in-house at MRV in Chennai by a bunch of really enthusiastic engineers to see what Indian R&D is actually capable of.
We are capable of really great. Like I said, across over there. Give our guys a chance, damn it. Don't be so circumspect, and our guys are capable. What it is this East India company syndrome which docks many minds in this country. We are born followers. Come on, guys. We have 1.3 billion people on this planet which are Indians. We can't find leaders. We need to lead here. If Mahindra is doing it, wonderful. We need more Mahindras then.
Definitely, I completely agree with you. The 700, we did a lot of stuff with it. We did the mega 24-hour speed endurance records. In the night, we actually averaged 200 kilometers per hour average speed laps.
Absolutely.
Which was phenomenal. And you got to remember, this is a 7-seater. So going back to what you're talking about, 5 seats, 7 seats.
No, I told you it was the fastest brick on 4 wheels.
Yeah.
So for it to move that well is phenomenal.
Both the petrol as well as the diesel, both the manual as well as the automatic. We ran 4 XUVs and all ran brilliantly, all beat the records, all of them. So phenomenal vehicle. Only downside to it is that you cannot get it. If you book it now, you're not going to get it before, what, at least a year and a half?
But the tragedy is that this is something which is not of Mahindra's own making. It's a question that COVID, China, I don't know why I keep on going back to China and whatnot. But they have completely changed the way we live, operate, and so the paradigm of buying a car has also changed. I heard about the Rolls-Royce guy saying COVID has told everyone in the world that you got to live, so you better make the most of what time you have on. That's the reason they have seen spurt in sales and whatnot. The same thing applies here as well, but the question is, Rolls-Royce sells 5,000 cars in a year, 5,000 plus little. The volume for the XUV 700 is 20 times that a year. And Rolls-Royce can use the might of the BMW purchasing strategy and whatnot and the might there. Mahindras can also, but unfortunately, with this new-found thing where one country has got the world by its literally
let's say neck.
Where it hurts. Well, so you need to look at that. You cannot just put all your eggs in one basket in the Far East or up north. So Mahindra and almost the global industry has suffered because of a lack of chips. I also heard one other high-ranking executive of company tell me that once COVID set in and all the product planners reduced the offtake and they revised their plans, what happened is, again, the chip industry veered on to saying that because it's at home, work from home, entertain from home, etc., everything shifted to computers, phones, tablets, so those
PlayStations, mobiles.
So everything, the production changed. And then they did not expect the car industry to bounce back. So there was this mismatch as well. Well, we are going through those pangs, but yes, the paradigm of buying a car in India has changed. You cannot have the money today, go and put in your money and say, I want the car as of yesterday. You'll have to wait for at least 6 to 8 months. That is the underlying fact you'll have to reconcile with and factor it in.
And that is across.
That's
not just Mahindra, that's
across. And also for bikes also, many bikes as well.
Yeah. Because bikes with ABS, they also have a lot of need for these chips. So that was the 700, one of the standouts. The Kia Celtos X Line, I don't know what we're going to talk about because that was basically a lipstick job with bigger wheels and that was there. And it's kind of disappointing because when Kia came in, they said that they're going to have a new car every year, and 2021 they did not have
they also had the brakes put on them with all this turmoil in the market, in the mines and whatnot. Life as we know it had virtually come. 1 or 2 months, the industry didn't even have a 0% growth. In fact, we degrew.
Zero sales also.
Yeah. So, in that sort of sense, I think we cannot take those 2021 or even a part of 2020 into account. We have to start afresh. 2022 is where we should look at rebuilding and getting back to the top end.
So they will be back in Jan itself with the Karen. So that was the X Line for you. The Mahindra Bolero Neo. This to me was was a surprise in the way it rode over poor roads, in the way it handled, and in the way that this was something that you could actually call an SUV. Now, a lot of our viewers, especially on social media, every time we say something is an SUV, they come back at us with full vehemence saying that this is not a bloody SUV. Which is a fact, because these are all car platforms that have been jacked up. Whereas the Bolero Neo is a proper SUV.
True. Again, like I said, even the XUV 700, the engine layout is an east-west location, it's front-wheel drive. And they have a so-called all-wheel drive version which they will offer. But that doesn't still make it into that pure SUV category. The Bolero Neo could have been that, I think they missed that one vital aspect in that. And care to think about it, the car, apart from its front end, has got the basis that it manages this transition from the Mahindra legacy CJ3B sort of vehicle to a certain degree of modernity. So this is that bridge model compared to anything else Mahindra has done. And it came in with great surface finishing, the interiors, Pininfarina design, everything. And honestly speaking, for such a car in such a category, those interiors put many cars of a class or two higher to shame. So in that sort of sense, I think Mahindras could have what you call, again, I don't see them driving home the message of how good the car is.
So this is a great SUV, compact SUV, but probably not pushed as much as
I think here Mahindra is suffering from plenty. It has got the Thar.
Huge waiting list.
Huge waiting list. Then it's got the XUV 700.
Mighty waiting list.
And they don't know, they are hard pressed, they're still addressing those two waiting lists. So they don't know what to do. But this requires as much of a push as those other guys.
Do you think the Neo needs four-wheel drive?
I don't think. I think if Neo can get a larger engine, it'll be brilliant.
Yeah, that's one thing that we criticize.
It's brilliant.
That the engine, it runs out of juice very quickly.
It's adequate for the purpose across over there, but more is always better in this case. And I say, don't go 2 liters, but you could go from 1500 to 1800 or something that way. You need a little bit more of a punchier engine.
This actually reminds me, and veering off topic, on the engine. The Marazzo, is the biggest problem of the Marazzo the size of the engine?
Yes. No, but more than that, I think there also, Marazzo again, I don't understand why Mahindra did not speak about it as a pure based MPV. They again, that infatuation of everything has to be SUV. See, what happens is you had the Quanto, the KUV 100, absolute duds. Absolute duds.
We're not holding back?
No, it's not a question of holding. Mahindra also knows that thing, And the Marazzo was, when it was revealed at the Detroit Motor Show, in a corner of the Mahindra stand, everyone forgot about all the other Jeep-based things which they were doing, and they went then, the journalists, they said the real star for Mahindra was the Marazzo there. I think Mahindras did not, again, like I said, you need to nurture a product. They didn't nurture this product well.
Because this could have been a strong rival to the Innova.
No, again, yes. There are two things which went against it as I see it. The engine was a little anemic, or it was not geared well or tuned well in that. Second thing was, they skimped on the ride of the Marazzo, especially the people who sat at the back. In an Innova, the right place to sit is definitely the middle seats. In the Marazzo, there was a thing where they had not got the balance correct, where car used to pitch quite a lot. And that was a engineering, a dynamic function which they could have what you call tune and what. They left it too late there. So what happens is, yes, there's a conundrum in the minds of the people there. When you make an MPV, it has to carry 7 people, least, if not 10. The Innova crams in all that stuff across for the taxi trade and whatnot. But even for a new breed of family-oriented car owners, the Marazzo made a lot of sense, but it did not give the right quality which it delivered. I remember one thing across over there. The person who prints my books, Jack Printers in Bombay, he's a hardcore travel nut. And he with his family guys, they made a trip to the Himalayas from Bombay. They had a Hexa and they had 2 Innova Cristas. And Parsi families, 3 cars. And in each car there were 6 people or 5 people. By the time they reached Delhi, everyone only wanted to be in the Hexa over the Cristas. It was a telling statement across over there, Same thing, that's the reason why I said the Marazzo needed that ride, that handling aspect to be spot on so that the ride didn't suffer.
Do you think Mahindra will revamp the Marazzo for 2022?
They should, because that's a great package. Everything is there. It requires just that final tweaking of understanding that it's not an SUV, but it's an MPV, and it requires a different application of handling and ride,
Yeah, which I think now their engineers know how to sort out ride and handling. Everything from the 700.
Sirish, it's not the engineers which are at problems. The problems are many a time the product planners, the product managers who suddenly want to, they look at within their own company, oh, what is the Thar guy doing? What's the actually? So they need to have a focus on why the Marazzo should sell. They should not look at anything else like that as far as fundamentally the car has to be concerned.
Okay, so product planners, watch out.
And I'm on your side, guys.
We have the Tata Safari, of course, that was not new, but we had the Gold Edition, the Adventure Person. Actually, sorry, the Tata Safari was new.
Yes.
It was 2021. I think we've experienced it so much that we think that it has been some time ago, or
The
maybe
brand,
it is the Harrier.
the name, exactly. The Harrier is a great car. Again, they rushed it into production very quickly before ironing out all its niggling faults and whatnot. The Safari benefited from that. And then they rammed home this thing that you are trying to revive a brand name in a very simplistic sort of manner. I think that went against it in many minds more than anything else. And the Safari is a brand name which has got so much brand strength. It is, honestly speaking, after the, when you talk about when their Tata Estate and the Tata Sierra came out, the Sierra was a quintessential modern Indian SUV.
Yes.
After that, the Safari took over and that imprinted on the Indian psyche. To have a badge engineered, slightly lengthened Harrier did not strike the right chords. Car runs good, everything is good, a lot of great stuff inside that thing. But again, like I said, look at the tumble down middle seats in the car. They should think about doing tumbling down in the right manner. And so these sort of small shortcomings is where Tata Motors needs to up its act.
Yeah, with the Safari also, do you think that if it had all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, would it have been a more genuine Safari?
Absolutely. That's where the basic ethos of the Safari nameplate lay.
Do you think that they will do a all-wheel drive Safari?
I hope so.
Okay.
I literally, sincerely hope so, because yes, numbers will be less, but guys, you have to think across of the image as a what do you call top of the line model. That halo of that has to transcend down to that. You're not giving yourself a chance to put a halo on yourself. That is exactly what I'm saying.
Of course, that will need significant re-engineering, because that would mean the entire rear suspension would have to be changed. Right now, it's a torsion beam. They would have to go to an independent rear setup. So that will cost time, money,
Again, the front end is also because of the way the engine is laid out and whatnot. So what I'm saying is, it's cheaper to do an all-new platform than to re-engineer existing platform in that sort. That's why I always maintain, plan well. Right at the concept stage, plan well. Don't think across over only about how you can save money on the manufacturing. I'm not saying you shouldn't save money on the manufacturing side by smart thinking rather than value engineering, which many companies were prone to do before. So I think you need to plan very, very well. Question every decision you take, whether it comes from the top or from the bottom, or the however experienced R&D guy is there or someone. But if someone asks a stupid question, don't make the guy understand. Question may be stupid, but hey, if a consumer asks that, then it doesn't become stupid at all.
Yeah, true. The Safari, it also had the gold edition with more bling on it, more bling outside, inside. But a good thing was that it had cooled seats for the captain seats in the middle. So that was a good thing.
Yes.
Because if you're sitting at the back, why should the guys only in the front have cooled seats?
Correct. That is a very positive thought process there. The fat cats will sit there.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, here is why is this line of thought not appearing in many more areas of the car? That is exactly where Tata Motors needs to up its game,
Yeah, but Tata Motors have upped their game. The
massive.
revival of Tata Motors in 2021 was one of the highlights, definitely. And I think right now they are number 2 in the monthly sales figures. So that's a great turnaround for the brand.
I think that as an Indian, I can puff my chest out and say, "Arey, yes, that is good." And it's not just me alone. There are many who feel that way. There's a groundswell of real nationalistic fervor when you see an Indian brand, Tata or a Mahindra or a Royal Enfield
doing well.
Yeah. It cuts across everything else, So in that sort of sense, and why should the Indian brands not do well? But they will only do well if they are good. They have to be good, and there's nothing stopping them from being good. What I'm saying is,
there'll be no excuses for it not being as good as an MNC.
Sirish, there was a thing where I remember we had this one person in the industry who told me, I'll be very happy that my car should fail 1 week after the warranty runs out. And that man came from a very big company and he said that thing across. So if you're engineering your cars in the Indian psyche, what you saw across over there, derogatorily you used to speak, "Arey, Banya is what you call handling that, so wo waisa karega." I'm saying get away from that. This is a big capital investment for a family when they buy a car. You cannot have this sort of a thought process rule the roost. But conversely, the MNCs have a little bit more of the planned obsolescence built into their cars. So even if our Indian manufacturers can match those MNCs in that planned obsolescence, that period, I think we'll be very well off.
Yeah, we should be. And to round up the SUVs of 2021, we have the Dark Edition Harrier and we have the Dark Edition Nexon EV. Okay, nothing new in the Harrier Dark Edition.
I said one thing when we were speaking about Volkswagen and whatnot with the dark rear interior. I don't like dark. We are not jokers here. We are not in a Batman movie. But yes, some guys, narcissistic guys, definitely do. So I'm not.
Okay, Adil, I won't call myself narcissistic, but I actually think that Dark Edition Harrier looks bitching.
Good for you. Good for you. Good for you.
So, the Harrier Dark Edition divides opinion. Adil says no, I say, yeah, go for it, man.
See, what I'm saying is, as long as it divides opinion, it polarizes opinion in a positive manner, I think that's good because it at least the car is being looked at as a prime consideration, a car worth of consideration, which is something where I remember when you had Mayank Parikh as in Tata Motors when he came from Mal, and he told me at that time they had a issue where Tata Motors was never in the top 3 list in a consumer's mind when it came to
on the shopping list.
On the shopping list. He said, my first thing is not to be top, I want to be in the top 3. Today you cannot say that these cars are not in. They are very much in the top 3 and they're in contention in their categories to being the number 1 there.
On merit.
On merit. So I think that's a very, very positive development. Mayank played a big role there. So this is something which I feel is very important.
And what Tata Motors have done really well is with the Nexon EV. Today, I think you got a 6-month waiting period on the Nexon EV. It is doing really well.
I think that if anything you wanted to see, we talked about flanking strategies so many times. Look at what Rajiv Bajaj did against Hero Honda. He hammered him, did everything from Bajaj Auto to get across to the fill it, shut it, forget it brigade, but he could not make headway. Thank God he understood that quickly and he said, let's outflank them. The Pulsar came in and Pulsar just completely rewrote the whole chapter on, or not rewrote, it established a chapter on sporty bikes and that has become a sizable segment. So Tata Motors also thought across of the flanking strategy. We'll keep on doing our things in the bread and butter stuff, but let's also be early movers in electrification. I feel that here they should have been joined by Mahindras, but Mahindras who were first early movers there, they did not do that. But I think that as they go forward and whatnot, the next range of cars which will come up from both the manufacturers, they will have a sizable presence both with electrified vehicles as well as with the ICE vehicles, engine vehicles. So I think it's good and I'm happy that these two manufacturers have not discarded or not made big outlandish statement out with ICE and in with. There is a lot of pragmatism and I think that's very good.
And also the investments they've got for the electric division now have freed up funds to actually go and develop the petrol engine that Tata Motors is really lacking.
Sirish, I don't understand why they didn't do the petrol engine, number one. Number two, first and foremost, even if they do a petrol engine, we have seen how modularity works. The Volkswagen Group is a success in how they've used the modularity of their engine families to really spawn so many things. And I think that Tata Motors, I've said it in the last podcast also, that 1.2 petrol engine, it could have been modular to have been scaled up to 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. And that would have served it so superbly well rather than being rigid and invest only in that sort of sense. They are paying the price that what little they saved then is going to cost them quite a lot. So you need to plan your engine family for the long term with everything in mind. Whether you can go up the cubic capacity range or you can go a little bit low, how much sophistication you require. Are you doing it from a power perspective or from a torque perspective? So all those things. And I was amazed that Tata engineer, the ERC has got to be the finest in automotive R&D in the country. They forgot that, or were there pressures from the bean counters? So there is quite a lot which I know, which I can't speak, I can't reveal. But the fact of the matter is someone needed to be strong at the helm of the management to say, let's take the right decisions.
Right. So we have to wrap up now. We've actually gone over our time, but I want to put you on the spot. Okay, what you said right now, ERC being the finest Indian engineering R&D setup, is ERC still the finest Indian R&D setup, or is MRV on par ahead?
I think on par, and on petrol engines, MRV has got its nose ahead.
So MRV and ERC on par, and something that we as Indians, as Indian automotive enthusiasts, can be really proud of.
Yeah, one thing I must tell you across over there, before any of these mandatory legislation came in on crash tests, on sound and whatnot, Telco or Tata Motors had already invested that when even they were not needed.
And they crash tested the Safari, the very first Safari.
Yeah, absolutely. So they have got, you go and look at the anechoic chamber, where I saw it in at Pimpri in Tata Motors facility 20 years ago, when there was no need for it. Yes. So what I'm saying is, yes, that and the crash testing thing, even the ARA started what you call getting other manufacturers' cars at the Tata Motors crash test facility to validate them. And they use the Tata Motors expertise in the crash testing thing to set up the test facilities for ARA. So I think, and as I've always said, the font for the best engineers in the Indian automotive industry was Telco, as Tata Motors was known as. And that still continues to a great extent today. The shameful thing is, or the sorry state is, those same cadre of people have not been able to gel well to deliver great cars earlier. Over the last 7-8 years, they have done really great. I just wish that lost decade of 2002 onwards till about 2012, that decade they blundered mightily in that front.
Yeah, so that's all that we have for this edition of the Thrill of Driving podcast. If you enjoy what you've watched or what you've listened, give us a thumbs up, share this podcast with like-minded enthusiasts, and next week we will be back with more SUVs. But this time we're going to be talking about premium SUVs, cars like the Q5, the Tiguan, the XC60, all of those that really stood out for us in 2021. And if you have any other topics that you think that Bossman Adil and I should talk about, drop it in the comments and we will take it up. Adil, thank you once again for being on the podcast, and see you next week.
Absolutely. Let's do that.
Thank you guys for watching or listening.